Hello and welcome to Charter Local Edition Northwest. I'm Dana Cowley and my guest today is Scott Starkey. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Pleased to be here.
You are the co-vice chair of the Oregon Hatchery Research Center on the advisory board, and a little bit later on in the broadcast we're going to hear from your other co-chair, Lindsay Ball.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about what you're doing and why it's important to the citizens.
Well, the Oregon Hatchery Research Center is located at Fall Creek on the LC River. And as you've probably heard, in Oregon there's been quite an issue about wild fish versus hatchery fish and the difference. And there's some scientific research that shows that hatchery fish are actually different than wild fish. And there's a risk that with wild fish or hatchery fish spawn together or mate with the wild fish, that the offspring are less fit than wild fish. In other words, they have less reproductive success. Mm-hmm. And the state of Oregon, the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, is mandated to protect wild native spawning stocks, but at the same time they have to support a viable sport, commercial, and tribal fishery. And in order to have a viable commercial sport and tribal fishery, you have to have hatcheries to help augment the fish supplies.
Right, otherwise you just get fished out.
That's right. And a big part of the catch right now are hatchery fish. But there is a big risk that the hatchery fish can spawn together with wild fish. So what we're trying to do is to learn the differences between hatchery fish and wild fish so that we can make a hatchery fish be as much as possible like a wild fish and have the same reproductive success as a wild fish.
All right. And then how do people benefit from this for the local citizens? What difference does that make to them?
Well, of course, salmon are extremely important to the local economy. And I just drove up the coast this morning, and there's hundreds of boats on the Coos and the Umpqua, Siletz rivers, all the way up and down salmon fishing right now. And in fact, in one river there was like 168 boats, and another like 130 boats I counted the other day. And those boats are worth $20,000 to $60,000. And then the guides are charging fees. They have people out there, and people are staying in hotels, and they're getting their boats and motors fixed. And even the herring that you buy to fish with, the bait, is fairly expensive. So it's a very important to the local coastal economies. But if the state does not learn how to manage or create a hatchery fish to be like a wild fish, there's threat that the hatchery fish can reduce the genetic quality and makeup of the wild fish. And there's actually been a couple of lawsuits filed already, one on the Sandy River and another on the McKenzie River, saying that we're hurting the wild fish stocks by letting these hatchery fish mate with them. And so there's been some attempt to close down a lot of the hatcheries or quit putting in the hatchery fish. And if we don't have the hatchery fish, then we don't have people catching them. We don't have that boost back to the economy. Mm-hmm. So it's very important that we learn how to make the hatchery fish as much as possible like the wild fish so that we don't have that problem. Because the state, like I said, is mandated to protect the wild native spawning stocks as well as keep a viable fishery. So we're trying to learn how to do both together. To have some public outreach, explain to the local people that we do have this state-of-the-art research facility. And it's actually, as Lindsay can probably explain more, it's about the best in the world, top-notch right here in Oregon.
Well, I think you're doing wonderful work, and we thank you for joining us. Thank you for explaining this, Scott.
Thank you.
And stay with us, because up next we'll be hearing more from Lindsay Ball. Welcome back to Charter Local Edition Northwest. As promised, our guest now is Lindsay Ball. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, ma'am.
Further explain to us the mission of the Research Center for those who might not be familiar with it.
The mission is to conduct research to identify differences in hatchery practices that create impacts to wild fish out of a hatchery. And that's its focus, and that was its intent. And it was built specifically for that. There are lots of things that go on there. It was built in, it was finished in October of 2005. It's the only one of its kind in the world. It's got 4 natural stream courses on it. They are 225 feet long and 25 feet wide. And each stream course that is set up is identical to the other one. Exactly the same. Rocks are the same size, logs are the same size, everything. Pools are the same depth across all 4.
Ah.
And the reason we did that is so that we could actually put 2 hatchery fish, a male-female hatchery fish in one, a male wild and a female hatchery, vice versa. So you separate. You got wild, hatchery, wild hatchery, wild.
Yep, in the identical environment, then
Yep.
you can do the comparison study.
Yes, and then you watch. We see what they do. It's real interesting. Some of the things we've learned is that behavior on hatchery fish is different than wild fish. And we kind of refer to it as the bully hatchery fish, because a lot of times, particularly males, will set up in a pool in the stream, and they just sit there. And the wild fish comes in and wants to be in the same pool.
Oh.
And so what happens is the wild fish will flare its gills, open its mouth, flare its gills, rub up against the hatchery fish. The hatchery fish doesn't know what to do.
Oh.
It doesn't. It just sits there. And typically, if it was 2 wild fish, one of them would leave.
Interesting.
But the hatchery fish doesn't know better. It just sits there. But what happens is, pretty soon the wild fish says, "Oh, I'm tired of this," swims off someplace else.
Oh.
And so what is happening there is we're displacing the hatchery fish, or the wild fish, from the pool it wants to be in.
Yes, and so then the hatchery fish is really kind of getting the upper hand, or maybe the ideal situations and
Yes.
environments.
Yes.
And now this is one of your own creative ideas. How did you come to this?
Well, because we needed to answer the question. We were faced with lawsuits, still are, as to hatchery releases and impacts to wild fish, and we needed to know, and we're still learning. Just for instance, another good research project that we've just completed. One of the things that we've suspected but didn't know is how do fish navigate in the ocean. So we conducted an experiment at the research center, and we created a geometric field, a force field, like is on the Earth, the geomagnetic force field, like is all around the Earth. And we know that magnetic force field is different at different locations around the Earth. So, and we know that the furthest north that our fish go from the Pacific Northwest is the Bering Sea.
Oh.
And so we know that they use olfactory sensory systems to bring them back to their natal stream. So what we did was we created this field in a big 1,000-gallon tank, took electricity, went over and got the electric engineers from the college, and we mimicked the geomagnetic force of the Earth at different locations.
Oh.
And we put Fall Creek fish, wild fish, in the tank, and they were just being little fish, swimming around. So,
Doing their little fishy thing.
so we turned it on for the Bering Sea, and in about 2 minutes, they were all headed south, all faced the south.
Oh.
And so
Isn't that
then,
amazing?
yeah, and so then we set it for Hawaii. In about 2 minutes, they were all pointing north.
Wow. That's fascinating.
Yeah. So we know from that the fish uses the magnetic field of the Earth a lot. Now here's the next question though we have. We barge those fish on the Columbia River. from up the Tri-Cities all the way down below Bonneville, and we release them. And the barge fish give us the least amount of return of any method we use to get fish to migrate.
Oh.
But they're inside here's some things to think about. They're inside a steel tank, the barge, and it's got all kinds of motors and generators on it, and it's being pushed by a tug that does the same thing, and it comes down through 4 of the largest hydroelectric dams in the United States.
Oh, so it messes up their magnetic compass.
No, there's another question to that. We also put a coated wire tag in their snout, and that's very close to where the sensory unit for the magnetic field exists. So we also put a magnet in their nose.
Oh, well, perhaps that have to be moved.
No, but see, these are all things that we need to work on.
Oh, how interesting. Well, it sounds like you're doing fantastic research, and thank you for coming here to explain this to us. I certainly appreciate it, and it's nice to meet you.
Good to meet you, ma'am.
Lindsay Ball, it's a pleasure. This is Lindsay Ball. I'm Dana Cowley, and you're watching Charter Local Edition Northwest.